Hey, what's up, you amazing hackers? Welcome back. Hope you're all doing well today. Let's talk a little bit about Postman and API testing because, of course, Burp Suite's not the only tool that we can use in our arsenal. Now, Postman is a really cool tool specifically made for API testing, and we're going to go through it live. So, if I make a mistake, bear with me. I think mistakes are learning experiences, which is why I don't cut them out as often. Now, first of all, we're going to need to make a workspace. Now, for me at least, I make one specific workspace and then I make collections per target. Collection is basically a term for Postman, and collection is it says all a collection of API calls that you can execute. So let's call this one test for the workspace, because after this I'm going to throw this workspace away. Of course, there's no team in here yet. You can invite team members up to 2 others in the free version. So it might be an idea to do that. And of course, you can upload a file as well, which we might do. I like uploading my own graphics to this kind of stuff. So let's put this one in. This one was made by Clucky. Oh, right. Sorry, this is my mistake. First mistake. Try to upload a bulk invite people and upload the image file. Way to go, Mr. Rat. There we go. So we have our workspace now. This is our workspace completely. It might seem barren and weird and strange, but we're going to go through all of this. And we're going to go through all of this with the use of this JSON placeholder API. It's basically just a test API that we can use to execute our calls on and to see what we can do. Now, first of all, you guys know what a get call is, you guys know what a post call is, so I'm not gonna explain that kind of stuff anymore. Let's dive straight in and create a request. They have a request on the home page. As you can see, they're fetching specific to-dos, so that's something that we can also do. Now you can create your workspace per target if you want. That way you can create a collection per feature. I like to keep my collections per target. So first things first, I'm going to create my collection, and of course this one is going to be a collection for the JSON placeholder type. So let's just rename it collection. There we go. And then of course I can do some git stuff in here if I want to as well. I can also run my collection, as you guys can see in here, and we'll talk about the runner later. And then you can set up your authorization for every single request in your collection. That way you won't have to set it for every request separately, but there are other ways as well. We have a pre-request script, which is really useful. There are several things we can do with this. If we want to manipulate our data in any way, for example, base64 encoded before we send it over, that's possible. If we want to grab data from another page, insert it in here, and change some values in it, that's also possible. So that's what the pre-request script is for. And the test is, as it says, for testing, but you can also do other stuff with this test tab. You can, for example, extract variables from a specific call, but that's something we're going to talk a little bit more about later. Then we have a variables specific as well to this one collection. Now, you have variables in Postman that run on specific levels. So you have your global variables. Your global variables will run on everything, on every workspace, on every collection, on every single API call that's being made. Then you have your environment variables. Those will depend on the environment that we set here. At the moment we don't have one yet, but we'll get deeper into that later on as well, of course. Then you have your collection variables. You can also have a variable specific to an API call if you really have to. So there are many different scopes of these variables, and I advise you to look into it because of course we can go over them all, but I think it's more useful if you look into it before the next episode, and then maybe you can compare the results that you got from me. So basically right now we don't want any of this stuff. I just want to write myself one API call, that's it. So what they're doing is a get request here. Very simple. That's something that we can do as well. So now we have our collection in here, JSON placeholder collection. Now we need a new request, of course. So we have several different ways of doing that. I just used the plus here. This is the collection, this is the collections tab, of course. There we go, another environment. There's also the APIs tab, the environments tab, the monitors tab, and the history tab. Now I don't know why I don't see my collection in here, but let's try this real quick. No, not seeing my collection. That's not very fun. So why is it not showing? Is there a filter? No, there's no filter set. It's not that important, but I do need my collection for my requests, of course. I'm going to have to look into this later on. Now, I'm just going to go back through here, and then I can create my API request in here as well. There we go. And this API request, again, I'm going to need a GET request to this specific URL. Oh, I didn't copy it properly there. There we go. There we go. So that's a call to a URL with a specific URI in it, and that's going to return a value if I make it. It's as easy as that. There's nothing that you can do in here like that's easier, just a very basic GET request. Then we can play with the parameters a little bit if there are parameters, of course. For this one, you can see that the only parameter in here will be the to-dos, and then we can just change the value of the to-dos if we want to. That's a possibility. See if we can get a to-do that we're not supposed to be able to see, for example. So that's one environment that I'm talking to. This is the environment specifically. Now, let's say that this environment here can change. Sometimes it's this, sometimes it's tst.json placeholder.typecode, and that might be the test environment. So let's make this into a variable. Now, I don't have a variable for this yet. The cool thing about Postman is if you just double click it and select a value, for example, I want this value, the whole value in here. Let me quickly select that. There we go. This whole value should basically be a variable. Then I can select it. I can say set as a new variable, and this one will be the URL. Set the scope, and then I can set my scope to global, environment, or collection. Again, there's no environment set, so it's not possible to set it as an environment variable. In this case, it's global, this variable. Now, why would you want to do this? Let's create another request, shall we? Because there's more, of course. There's a request to the /posts that we can make. So let's insert this request as well. Let's call this request something different now. Let's see how we can rename it. There we go. No, that's not the one. Let's just save our request. So we have our collections here. I don't know why I'm not seeing them in my list in the left options menu, but I'll look into that and I'll get back to you guys in the next video. So now I have saved my specific request. I can give it a name as well. In this case, it's going to be the get for the to-dos /value, of course. And this will help me understand my request better, see what it's all about. Now, since I am not seeing it in here, I'm going to be very careful that I don't close it in here, then I might lose it. And now we have our second request. So the same thing is going to happen. We're just going to grab all of the posts in here, all of them, not the specific one. But now let's say we have two calls. What if we want to change this URL? It's going to take a lot of patience to change the URL in 100 requests. That's exactly why I always make my URL variable. Really interesting functionality for Postman, that you can make it variable that easily. You can just double click it, set as variable, and you're done. Of course, the scope matters, so let's start by setting up an environment. That's something we haven't done yet. I can click the I here, and then I can see which variables are active at the moment, also the initial values and the current values, because those can change over time. So it's important that we know that. And now we have an environment open in front of us. This is going to be, let's call this the test environment. And we can put the URL variable in here, but for me, let's see, so I can't put the URL variable in here right now, sorry about that. And then it would be gone from the global variables list. It's pretty useful to do that, and I would definitely recommend it. Now, very basic request, again, JSON post, nothing specific about this. We can name the request something differently. Let's call this one get posts, get / posts. There we go, there's no identifier behind it. And that's our get request. Now let's talk a little bit about post and put requests as well, because that's something that we haven't done before. We can make a post request to the post call. So let's say I have a put request. As you guys can see here, you can make a put to a specific post. So let's do that, shall we, real quick. Let's grab post number 2. Let's see what its current value is. And then let's make a put call to that specific endpoint. Now, some of you might have already seen this. It's not going to work like this because I don't have any variables. All I can see now is my ID is 2. So let's make it a get request again to see what we need, what we have here. It turns out that body is going to be one of these specific parameters that we can adjust. So body is something that's going to be in our body because it's going to be a put request again. And in this body, let's just change it to form data, or let's make it raw. That's easier. There we go. And I can just paste my values in here, and then I can possibly change some of these values. So let's see what this gives me. It says ID number 2 in here. I don't know if it worked right now. So what I can do again is make a get request. I'm going to make it a new get request because this one is our post request now. And then I'm going to make a get request to that specific post that we've talked about before. Now, it gives us back values, but they didn't work. It can be that the API here is at fault, I say, but it can just be like, as you see, I didn't read their guide properly, but the put methods, that's something that we can look into right now. So let's see, the put method, it's patching a resource. So that's going to be a patch, then we have a put, that's it, this one. So as you can see here, they also have the same things as we do. They have a method, a put method, a specific body. That's something that we also have right here in our request. So let's make it a put request. Let's grab that real quick again. There we go. So we also have a body. Only thing is ours is raw data, as you can see here, which is not the correct format because they expect some JSON data. So we need to, of course, form data is good, that's okay. We can put our variables in here. We can also just make sure that we give it that specific input value that it needs, that we give it that JSON file by setting the content type, as you can see here, to application/JSON. That's something that we can do. It's a specific header in this case. So as you can see, there are quite a lot of hidden headers already. And we can add another key in here. Keys is going to be the variable names. And this is going to be content type as a header. And we're working on the put requests here, right? Yep, that's put requests. Let us quickly rename that as well so that we don't keep getting confused by it. There we go. And then we add that header. There we go. And let's add the value as well. Et voila. There we go. We changed that. Let's try it again with raw data. Let's see what it says now. As you can see, it's colored in nicely. That's because it now knows what we are talking with. And as you can see, the body has been updated in this case. So we've just created a put request in here. And in this put request, we can change specific values. Now, we know how to make a get request, we know how to make a put request, and this time I forgot to replace this with a variable. So let's do that real quick. Now you can also see what it looks like. If I know what the variable name is, I can just click it and bam, I have my variable. So super useful tool. That's a get request, a post request, a put request. Post request is going to be very similar. Then you have your delete request, of course. Delete request is just a URL. And then you also have a host of other options that you can get by calling the options method. If you do it like this, options on this specific URL, it should return this what you can do, but I think I'm doing something wrong here. I just need the options. No, it's not returning it. Doesn't matter. Anyway, a options call would return what's possible, which calls can be made on that endpoint. So let's look a little bit about these other things, because of course you can also patch a resource, same thing. We just need to make sure that we have the good header there. Patch is going to be probably just only one specific field. And then deleting a resource is something that we can also do. It won't be deleted for real, as you can see here. And as you can see here, if we patch or put, the resource will not really be updated on the server, because of course that would mess up the server for quite a lot of people. Now, something else I wanted to show you as well is, let's say we want a filter on that. Let's say we have a parameter in the URL here. This endpoint, let's make a new endpoint. Let's copy this one over. Is that possible? No, let's just create a new API call then. So we're going to create a new API call. This is going to be a GET request to this specific URL. And again, I'm going to make my URL itself variable. There we go, user ID equals 1. And now if I send this over, you can see that I grab all of the posts from a specific user. So now I have some parameters in here. These parameters are things that I can play with. I can try user ID equals single quote, and I should be maybe expecting a database error. I can also try double quote, of course. There's many different things that you can do. You always have to judge each parameter in its own right. So that's how you create all of these specific calls if you don't have things that are set up for you. Sometimes targets will expose a complete WSDL file is what they're called, and they basically contain a description of their entire API. You can easily import that into Postman, and that way you can very easily get started. You don't have to spend a lot of time setting things up properly. You can basically just immediately get started. Now, besides the collections, of course, we can also have a monitor. So if we have a collection that we want to run every now and again, I don't know why you would do it, but you might have a reason for it. No environment, let's run it on test, and then we can create it. So what this monitor will do is it will automatically run my tests every time that I basically set it up to run those. Right now it's running them. You can see it as it goes, and you have a summary of your run. Here we have no tests found. That's normal. We're not testing anything. That's something that we're going to look into later. But for now, all you want to do is change some of these parameters around. I see user ID equals 1 here. I make user ID equals 2 here. Now, one interesting thing you can also do is, if you get a response, what you should always do is, let's send this over to the server. I'm not getting any response anymore because I have the completely wrong method selected. There we go, a put request. So we have some values in here. Sometimes there might be values in the response that are not in the request, but they might seem impactful, like account type and all of that stuff. Then it's your job to copy those over and see if you can't play with them a little bit. Because before you know it, you'll be admin, and bam, that's a huge vulnerability, of course. Now, I would recommend that you guys take a lot of time getting your notes right, getting your titles properly set up, getting your collection set up the way you want that. I always say that people should spend 70% preparing and 30% executing, but that's my little autistic brain, I think. But this is not all for Postman, of course. This is just the very basics. There is much more that we can do, and my friends, we will do that later on as well. I still can't see my collections. That is frustrating, but it's okay. I'll figure it out and we'll go over it next time. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope I will see you in the next episode. Bye, amazing hacker.